guys, welcome back to J&J Beekeeping. We're waiting for a warm and sunny day to do our hive inspection, which got us preparing our supers and super frames. It also got us thinking about the bee space. The bee space was invented by Lorenzo Langstroth. The ideal bee space is 5/16 of an inch, but it can be from 1/4 of an inch to 5/8 of an inch.
Well done, Jake. Yeah, Lorenzo Langstroth discovered that in the nests of bees in the wild that there was a kind of channel network or corridors, a system of spaces that the bees needed to work in, and he brought the idea and invented a system whereby you have movable frames in a box system from a floor, a door, entrance floor at the bottom, and then boxes and movable frames that allow for this exact bee space. Now, the bee space, as Jake said, was if we could zoom in on this, the bee space, as we said, was between 1/4 of an inch and 3/8 of an inch. And what he discovered was for a space less than 1/4 of an inch, the bees will form propolis and stick the gaps together and fill the spaces. And more than 3/8 of an inch, they'll form brace comb. So it's very important to be in this range. And the ideal, as Jake said, is 5/16 of an inch. So that's the ideal bee space. Now, when orientating your boxes, your brood box on the bottom, and then your super honey boxes on the top, you can either have the bee space on the top of the frames, which means that the bottom rungs of the frames will be flush with the bottom of the box, and there'll be a gap here, or you can have the bee space at the bottom, in which case the tops are flush as they are here, and the bee space, there's a nice bee space. You can see the space underneath the frames and between the bottom of the frames and the bottom of the box. So our brood box, which is in use at the moment, has a bottom bee space, so we're doing the same with these. It's very important that it's the same, so whatever boxes you have, it's bottom bee space, or top. It's very important that you're consistent. Now, on the supers, these metal runners are called castellations, and these help to hold the frames in the right place, as well as the design of the frame. So this is providing an ideal bee space in between the frames. But in terms of the bee space above or below, this is done with the help of runners. So here's a runner. There's a lip on the top which fits snugly on top of the wood in the box, on top of the channel. So if you wanted the top bee space, you might not even need the runners, but we're using a bottom bee space, so we want the frames to be kept up, so we certainly are using the runners. Now, this is a second-hand box, a super box, and the lines and the angles all obviously aren't quite accurate, because when we just put the lip down on the edge and put these in, they were at slightly different levels. It was still a top bee space, but it wasn't that consistent, and in fact in one corner it was more like a 3/4 of a top bee space and 1/4 of a bottom bee space. It wasn't quite level, so we've made it, we've adjusted the runner slightly, and actually in the middle they were a bit lower, so we had to pull the middle bit up a little bit. So when we've tacked it in now, we've actually made sure everything is totally nice and level. It's really flush on the top, perfectly level, and below, a good way to identify, just to check the below bee space is okay. The width of this book is exactly is exactly the same as the minimum bee space, so we can put this under here, and we put the hive on top, and you can see this isn't lifting the bars, so we know the space below is at least the minimum bee space. We just decided, we thought of this the other day, and this spine here, this book, is the ideal middle of the range bee space. So this actually does push the frames up a touch, just a tiny bit. So I'll get my diagram again. So that means that we're happy with our bee space. We're in this kind of area here. We're not quite the average, but we're in good shape. So we're really happy with that. So we're going to use that on all our boxes and all our hives. We're not sure if there's any benefits other than what's easiest for you, so we might learn that along the way, or perhaps anyone could send in comments. In terms of the queen excluder, when we put our queen excluder on, If you have a flat queen excluder, that's no problem, that just goes underneath, and you've got the bottom bee space below here and then the bottom bee space below the frames in the brood box. But this bit's very important. If you have a queen excluder like this, which is the one we're going to use, which has a frame on one side, so this queen excluder has a frame on one side and the other side is totally flush, so no frame. We're going to put this frame down. So lift that up, Jake, for me. Thank you very much. So frame down. So that's how we're going to orientate it. So there's a bottom bee space again below this frame, then the queen excluder, and then there's actually a bee space under the queen excluder where the frame is. So that's actually creating another space on top of the brood frames. And then we're going to use this cover, which actually creates another space on top of the frames here. But when you're creating the bee space from the frames, you have to be the same all the way, bottom, 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 when you're organising the frames in the super boxes and the brood boxes. So we're happy with that we have a good bee space. Hopefully that'll mean that the bees aren't unnecessarily making brace comb and propolis and sealing up gaps they don't need to, and it hopefully means that we don't have to spend quite so much time prizing open things and things apart and cleaning off brace comb. So that's the bee space. In terms of the warm way and the cold way, if we pretend this is a brood box and this is a brood box frame, then if this was the front hive entrance, these frames would be orientated in the warm way, which is the frames parallel to the entrance board to the front of the hive. What this means is if there's any weather, wind or damp weather, if it's coming in the front door of the hive, this effectively causes a bit of a break, so it just helps protect the frames at the back. Whereas if this was the front of the hive with the frames running perpendicular, this is called the cold way. Wind can just blow straight through, so I think in Ireland where the weather's not great, people would generally prefer the warm way, which is this way. And Jake, this also suits us, doesn't it? Because we're working the hive from behind, so we can just move them back and out. This suits us in terms of our stand orientation as well. So that's it. Anything else, Jake?
No, not really.
No, I think that's it. So that's the warm way and the cold way. We have our bee space sorted. We're waiting patiently for a warm day when we can do our first real good hive inspection. So we look forward to seeing you then. Thanks very much. Bye.
Bye.